And thanks for watching the Cardinals Nest here on HBC Channel 25. Dean Beckman along with Sports Information Director Donny Nadeau back to talk St. Mary's athletics and other events going on with the St. Mary's community. And Donny, this week during the interview portion of the show, we'll have on Ward Berndt, the cross-country coach, as they're getting ready for the MIAC championships. And also David Feathers, one of his runners, will join us on the show today.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to have Ward on. I know Ward admitted that he's a little proud of me for last weekend. I actually did complete the fall frolic, so I told him I have 4 years of eligibility, so if they have a 5K race amongst the collegiate races, I'd be more than happy to join. But it'll be fun to have Ward on. Ward's one of our veteran coaches and has been on the show a number of times in the past, and so it'll be nice to see how things are going with him. And I'm excited to talk to David too. Kind of stepped into his own this year, and you know, it'll be fun to kind of see the difference between last year and this year for him as a collegiate runner.
And what I like about the interview segment, we talk about David and all the other athletes week in and week out, and now we finally get a chance to see them here on camera.
Yeah, and you know, that's true for me too in my job. You know, I write about these guys all the time. It is nice to not only put a name with a face, but to get to sit and talk to them and kind of get you know, a feel for what it's like to be, you know, in this instance, to be a cross-country runner. And you know, I've said before, I still have yet to figure out what part of the fun run was fun in that race last week. And these guys are running 8Ks, and they're doing it, you know, making it look easy.
Right.
And so it is kind of fun to talk to them about things like that, and you know, maybe get into you know, what it's like to be a collegiate runner.
If I would have been thinking and I gotten video of you running, Donny, and then Ward could have breaking it down here on the show with the technique and all of that.
Oh, he would have loved that.
Unless we don't have
it. Was not pretty.
All right, first though, here on the Cardinals Nest, we'll talk about the previous week in St. Mary's athletics. And Donny, we have to start off with men's soccer. On Tuesday night, they went up against, going into the year, was picked to win the MIAC conference, and it's a very strong conference in men's soccer. And St. Mary's didn't win, but they came out with a 1-1 tie, which was very impressive for Coach Dean Beckman's team.
Yeah, I talked to Coach after the game, and you know, you talk to coaches, especially after a tie, and there are good ties and there are bad ties, and this obviously was a very good tie for them. Well, last year they lost to Gustavus 5-0, so for them to turn that completely around and tie them 1-1 this year, I think it says a lot for where the program is headed. And obviously, you know, there's been some down times for that program, and right now they're playing very well, and they're really turning around. That 1-1 decision it's one of those, we scored first on a goal by Steve Busey, and when Gustavus came back and tied it, rather than panicking, rather than, you know, getting down on themselves, they just kept battling and battling. And as we've talked, just about got John Safransky in goal, you know, you're sitting with a 1-1 tie, you're feeling pretty good, because giving up one goal is about as much as you're going to get out of him.
Right, and you know, I don't know if John would necessarily agree with this, but from the games that I've seen, they seem to be giving him more of a break this year, not relying on him quite so much, with better defense and a slightly better offense. Even though they're not scoring a lot of goals, they're keeping it in the other team's zone and not relying on John so much to have to come up with save after save after save.
Yeah, and you're right. And the interesting thing about that is now St. Mary's has now played, it's interesting, they've played 5 games in the last 8 days, and 3 of those games went into double overtime. So not only are they playing, you know, that much, but they're adding, you know, you're adding about 40 minutes onto that. And John has come up very big, both against Viterbo and against Gustavus in overtime. And I mean, he's in those 2 games alone, he's made 5 incredible saves that you just look at and you just shake your head and you go, wow. And that's kind of what they need from him, but they don't need it constantly, shot after shot after shot. You know, they need him to come up with 2 or 3 big saves, and that's what he's doing. And I think that's the difference in his play between last year and this year. Is last year he was having to make 7, 8, 9 of those saves, whereas this year he's only got to make 1 or 2, and I think that the team just continually feeds off of that.
Right. So now the team is 0-2-1 in the conference play, 4-4-2 overall. Long trip now. They have to go up to Concordia on Saturday, so they've got some time off until then, but a long haul to go.
Right, and it's a long season. I mean, you know, they've only played the 3 conference games, so they've got a lot of conference games left, 7 to go, and starting with Concordia on Saturday. And I know Coach Dean Beckman had said, you know, we need to rest a little bit. We need to, you know, they'll take Wednesday off, and then they'll hit it on Thursday and Friday, and and they'll head up to Concordia, which is a tough trip. To travel all the way to Moorhead is, no matter what sport we talk about, that's a very difficult trip just because of the long bus ride. But he feels that they're going to be very ready. Offensively, they did just score 1 goal against Gustavus, but they're playing well, and they're getting contribution from a number of people. We were talking about Steve Busey earlier with Ryan Rademacher's playing. Brian New had the game winner against Lakeland in a 3-2 overtime win last weekend. So they're getting some opportunities from some other players, and that's what they need. They need to be able to get more than just one person doing all their scoring, and as they go around, it's going to make it tougher for opponents to be able to single on one player or not. And right now, things seem to be clicking. Obviously, they need to get more than 1 goal. Right. But Chris likes where they're at. He likes the way they're playing, and is actually excited about that trip to Moorhead because he thinks that that they should match up very well against Concordia.
And I know if I'm an athlete, I'm going all the way to Moorhead, I'm going to get on that long bus ride, I'm going to win. I'm not going to go up to show up flat. I want to win when I get
absolutely.
there.
And I think that's the one thing, whenever you talk about a trip to Concordia, that's the key, is you got to get off that bus and you've got to be ready to play. Mm-hmm. You can't have, bus legs, you can't be still half asleep. You've got to step off that bus and be ready to play, because like you said, it's a long trip, and the worst part is if you play poorly, it's a very long trip home.
Longer,
so, it's a lot of it home from Concordia if you win, but if you play poorly, it's a long trip home. So I know that Chris is feeling well about, he's feeling good about the way they're playing, and I know he's feeling very well about that tie with Gustavus. So I think things are really starting to gel for them, and hopefully they can continue that on Saturday.
The women's soccer team picked up a 1-0 win over St. Kate's last weekend, and we talk about the play of John Safransky in goal for the men. Mariana Sanchez for the women had some terrific saves in that 1-0 victory.
Yeah, Mariana she's a great goalkeeper, and she and John do the same thing. They keep their teams in position to have a chance to win games, and right now that's what they need to do. The win against St. Catherine for them, a 1-0 win. Mariana gets the shutout, and Dana Winkler comes up with the big goal. And we've been talking about Amy Civic just about every week we've been on the show, and it was nice that Amy was dishing out the assist to set up that goal rather than having to do the scoring. So it was nice to see Dana score that goal. That was her 3rd of the year, which is ties her career for the first 3 years in one season. So she's obviously playing very well, and I think the same thing. It was a win that they very, very much needed. Coach Zimmerman was still looking for his first win as in the conference as the coach of the Cardinals. So it was nice to get that monkey off their back, and it was nice to just get in the win column in conference play, and hopefully, as we talked with the men, they've got to travel up to Moorhead on Saturday, and hopefully they'll be able to play well. And I think that you can just continue to build that confidence. And when you have a goalkeeper like Mariana in goal, you're going to be able to feed off of that, because she just brings this energy and this this excitement to the game that I think everybody just feeds off of that.
Right. And Eric's reaction after that 15-game conference non-winning streak, because they had a few ties in there, but it had to be one of just relief, because now he's got that win. Move forward.
Absolutely. I mean, it was nothing more than a big giant sigh of relief. And the hard part was they were coming off an overtime loss to McAllister, which would have really been a huge victory for them because of the era that McAllister is in college soccer. But for them to be able to bounce back then and get the win against St. Catherine was very important. And again, I think it was important that it wasn't Amy Civic that scored that goal, just because he needs some offense from some other people, and I'm really glad to see Dana step up and really start to play well and be part of that offensive force for the Cardinals.
Mike Lester's volleyball team, Donnie, also getting its first conference win of this season to go to 1-2 in conference play as they went up to St. Paul and beat Hamlin. Started off a little ho-hum. Maybe the bus trip up there, they got off a little sluggish as they lost the first match, but then back strong, ended up taking it 3-1.
Yeah, you talk about bus legs, and that's exactly, the Coach Lester's match against Hamlin is exactly what we were talking about. They went up there and they kind of, just kind of went through the motions in that first set, and I'm sure they got a little bit of a talking to. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah. They got a talking to after that first set.
Not much talking being done, though.
Exactly. And after that, then they won 18, 15, and 16, and so obviously they were the better team. I think it just took, and as Mike told me after the match, we need to learn that every single set, every single point is important, and you can't afford to be sleepwalking through matches, because that's what happens. You do that, and all of a sudden you lose a match that you're supposed to win, and in a conference like theirs, where you get 6 teams in, and there's so many of them that are battling for that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots. You can't afford to be giving away victories. So I know, it was a very much needed win, first conference win, and more importantly, I think they hopefully learned their lesson that you're ready to play right when we step off of that bus. And I think that I think that lesson was learned, and if not, they certainly got the talking to after that first set.
Right. As we tape this, they're getting set to play Carleton on a Wednesday night, so we'll find out more then. What do they have this upcoming weekend for the schedule?
This weekend they have the Border Battle, which is their final tournament of the season, where they play 4 teams from the Iowa Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. And what it is you take the top 4 teams in the standings last year in the MIAC and the top 4 teams in the IAAC, and they'll play each other, and then the next 4 teams in each conference play each other, and it's just kind of a neat rivalry that they developed several years ago. And I know that you have to be in the top 8 of the conference to qualify for that. Obviously, being that we finished 6th and got into the conference tournament, we're in that situation. And had we finished one place higher, we'd be hosting this tournament in Winona this weekend. So that would have been a lot of fun. But right now we'll go to Northfield and play 4 Iowa schools, which is always tough because that conference is, we talk about the strength of our conference. The Iowa conference is almost as strong as ours, so this is going to be some very good competition.
Right. All right, Jeff Stengel took the men's golf team to the St. Olaf Invitational recently, as they're getting ready as well for MIAC Conference Championships this upcoming weekend. And looking for consistency, the team ended up finishing 7th, but from an individual standpoint, I think he got the consistency he was looking for.
Yeah, they're doing okay right now. And I think if we were hoping to have Jeff on today, and obviously they're up doing their practice round for the conference championships this weekend. And one of the things that Jeff would probably tell us is the consistency is there, but they still aren't consistently in the low numbers that they need to be in. In that meet at St. Olaf, they did not have one score in the 70s. And if they're gonna make any moves in the conference, they've got to get some numbers, below 80. And right now, that's what Jeff's looking for. They're consistently in that low 80 range. But if they want to make any type of a move, if they want to do anything in the conference, they've got to get those 80s into the mid 70s. And hopefully a practice round up at Bunker Hills will help work out some of the jitters that they may have heading into the tournament, and give them some insight into what they're going to be facing this weekend, and they'll be ready to go.
Yeah, 54 holes, Saturday through Monday. It's a good experience for them.
Yeah, and this is the first of 2 weekends where they actually play 3 days of a tournament rather than the traditional 36-hole 2 days. So it'll definitely be different. I'm sure by that 3rd round, things are you're going to be struggling a little bit because you haven't played that 3rd round of tournament golf in a row. So I think it'll be a good experience, especially for the younger guys, and hopefully they do very well.
Yeah. 6th place finish for the women golfers at the St. Benedict Invitational, and Caitlin Rizzi really performing well there. A drop off in scores after that, but Caitlin really showing up at that St. Ben's invite.
Yeah, she had another round in the low 80s. We're talking about the guys. Caitlin is right about where she needs to be heading into the conference championships. She had an 84 at ends, and that's it ties her low for the year, and that's great to see. I mean, you talk about peaking at the right time, and right now that's what she's doing. She is, she's playing some very good golf, and I think that she has the ability to even score lower than she has. There's still some holes in there that are probably a little higher in score than she would like, and I think if she can just throw together 3 very consistent rounds in those low 80s, we should be talking next week about all conference honors for her. But she's got to continue that consistency and keep playing very well.
Right, Gia Pooch not too far behind. Then there seems to be a bit of a drop-off, although Brittany Nielsen has been playing pretty consistently, Colleen Norwell as well. So hopefully, is that this weekend too for the women?
Yep. Both of them are up at Bunker Hills this weekend, 3 days, conference championship. This will be the last match or tournament of the season for the women. The men now will have the Gustavus Twin Cities Classic next weekend, which is also a 3-day tournament. So they'll have their big one this weekend, and then they'll have one more next weekend.
Yeah, we'll get Jeff on later in the year to wrap things up for us. And finally, Donnie, in this segment, let's talk about tennis. They're involved with some fall activity.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we're talking tennis in in early October, but they played. The women played in the ITA Wilson regional tournament last weekend at Gustavus, and actually did very well. Bailey Edwards had won her first 3 singles matches before falling in the round of 8, which is as far as we've ever had a singles player go. So that was great to see. And I know Coach Hallberg was very happy with the way that his team played, and it was funny. I was watching him at the St. Catharines soccer game because he's an assistant soccer coach, and he's taking a call from his assistant tennis coach who was with the ladies on Saturday, and he's like, okay, I got to go. I got a soccer game going on. So, but he was very excited for Bailey, and Rebecca Snyder did very well winning her first match, and it's a very, very big elite tournament, and by getting as far as Bailey did, now when we start our tennis next season, she'll actually be regionally ranked, which is really quite an honor for Bailey. And I know when we get into the spring, we'll talk a lot more about tennis. But I think things are looking very bright for the women's and the men's tennis teams. Now the men will play in that same tournament this weekend at Gustavus. So hopefully next week we'll be able to talk about Pavel and Justin Loeffler and those guys doing just as well as the women did this week.
Good things to come in tennis for sure. All right, stay tuned here to the Sports Authority. We'll be back to talk cross country right after this on HBC. I said Sports Authority.
These days, everyone's talking about saving the environment.
And at HBC, we're doing the little things that you can do that really make a difference.
Like recycling our bottles and cans.
Or shutting down our computers at night to help save electricity.
Or setting out bins for our excess paper waste.
And even something as simple as turning off the lights.
At HBC, being green is just another way we're helping to build a better community.
For more tips on having a green lifestyle, visit our website, my.hbci.com/green.
And we're back here on the Cardinals Nest on HBC. Dean Beckman, Donny Nadeau, joined now by Ward Berndt, the cross-country head coach for the Cardinals, and David Feather, one of his sophomore runners. David, Ward, thanks for being on the show today.
No problem.
And David, we're going to start off with you. Tell us how you got into long-distance cross-country running and how you ended up at St. Mary's, what your major is, and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, that takes me back quite a ways to 6th grade, actually. I started running for the city that I went to school in, cross-country and track. And
where are you from?
I'm from South Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, great.
And I started running there, and it was obviously shorter distances then. And I just really liked it. I also juggled swimming in there, and then running just kind of became the one thing I was focusing on. And going into high school, I really concentrated. I was running almost year-round by the time I was a sophomore, just trying to get better. And then Ward contacted me, and I ended up coming to St. Mary's, and it was a really good decision.
Right.
I like it. And I'm going to be majoring in biology pre-med.
Okay, great. So long road ahead of you academically.
Oh yeah,
but,
lots of school.
But with all of the long distance running, it's a long
that's
road.
Right.
So that's
Ward, talk a little bit about what you saw in David that you felt maybe that he would be a good fit here at St. Mary's, and obviously, I mean, hindsight 2020 or whatever you want to say, obviously has worked out very well.
Well, obviously, the first thing we look for is times, because you can't fake times. Either you run pretty good or you don't. The other thing David really had going for him too is he had good academics, and that's runners and academics tend to help each other out a little bit on the side of it too. And actually the first time I got to see David run too, I really liked his mechanics and I liked his style and form running too. So I was hoping he was coming here. And as soon as he did, I was definitely happy to hear that he applied and accepted. So
David, aside from the obvious distance difference between high school and college cross country, what was the biggest adjustment for you, and especially from even take it from your sophomore year or your freshman year here last year and this year, because you've really stepped into the limelight here and had so far what's been a really great sophomore year.
Right. Well, you're right. The distance stepping up from 5K to an 8K is a big step. But you get accustomed to that pretty easily. But the biggest thing for me, and I think most runners, is the length of the season. And I know from last year, I was just so fatigued the last 2 meets. I kind of ran out of steam. I had a really good race that I'm proud of, early in the year, and it just kind of went downhill from there because the intensity of running at a college level is so much greater than anything I've experienced before.
Do you see it different this year now? Because obviously your times keep getting better. You keep leading the team. I mean, you finished first for our group. Every meet that we've run. Is it easier this year because you had that experience last year?
Right. I definitely feel more comfortable. The training from last year, both in cross and track, has helped me. I had a solid summer of good training, which I think is helping. I can't say 100% for sure yet because I'm not to that point in the season where I hit that fatigue last year. But I'm pretty confident to say that I feel ready and I can work through it a lot better this year.
David, going into a meet, what what kind of goal do you set for yourself? I see in the last one you clocked in just under 28 minutes. Do you go for a specific time or just to improve upon the last performance?
Usually for me, I focus on a time. There's different runners, and some people focus more on place, some focus more on time. I like to focus on time because to me, it makes more sense. You know, if you can take off so much time here, you can see yourself progressively getting better, and you know, your splits and everything, they just kind of make sense. But for this Friday, I'm definitely going for time, but there's also certain runners and kind of a place in my head where I'd like to be.
Okay. Ward, talk a little bit about last weekend. You were at the Roy Griak, which really was your first official big meet, and I guess big is kind of an understatement when you've got 500 runners in each race going at it. I'm just amazed at that race. But talk a little bit about what you saw from your runners. Or was it about what you were hoping for? Just a general synopsis of last weekend.
Well, for the guys' side coming in, we have a really young squad. We have about 6 freshmen, 7 freshmen on the guys' side. And this is their first exposure to 8K distance. So what we were looking forward was coming out of the race feeling pretty good about their performance, knowing what they can improve on, and just knowing how to handle the 8K race. Because, truth, there's about 450 people in the men's race. So if they did a little bit better, a little bit worse, nobody was going to notice. They really had nothing to lose by going in and just running the race. The thing I really liked about it, we came across, the men had a lot of consistency, especially in the freshmen, which is really, really pleasant to see. On the women's side, we were working more on the warm-up side of it because we felt that's been lacking a little bit, so we really focused on getting the warm-up and getting into the race and seeing how it goes from there. And we got the results from that, and our top 3 women all had lifetime PRs coming out of it, and for our first 6K of the season, that's pretty promising. And it's a tough course to do it on. So, is it a hard meet because it's so big? I mean, that's a lot of runners. That's as big as you'll face all year. But is it a harder? I guess this is a question for both of you. Is it a harder race to run because of the amount of people that are there? It's a double-edged sword, I believe, because there's so many people in there. Sometimes you get lost in the sea of people, and you don't quite know where your position is. It doesn't really matter if you pass 1 or 2 people. But the other side of it is there's always somebody to pass to. If you're feeling aggressive and you're feeling like you want to get after it, there's definitely people that you can start passing and build some momentum and some head of steam coming off of that.
What was your reaction to last weekend?
I agree with Ward. There's pros and cons to it. Like I said before, I've been doing this for a while now, so I have race experience, and I kind of try to block out, all the people and things that could distract you. But it definitely helps if you kind of get stuck out there, or if you're falling behind on the pace. There's always there's always a group of people to try to catch up to.
Ward, David had talked about the fatigue that sort of set in his freshman year. As a coach, how do you try to fend some of that off as far as the training aspect goes? What do you suggest? I know marathon runners have certain regimes that they go and certain training schedules that they follow. What's your suggestion for freshmen coming in, adjusting to the new distance?
The unfortunate part is you kind of have to face it before you can overcome it, and you just have to go through it and grind a little bit. Well, we'll do those. We'll take some time off at the end of the season, or we'll taper down their mileage a little bit too, so that they can make it to the end of the season, still be healthy, and still be feeling pretty good, hopefully. But most people are going to experience that fatigue at the end of the year, and you try and coach them through and just say, okay, we know what it's like. It is going to get better. Just have to have a little patience, and it's going to take a little bit more time.
We've talked obviously in cross country. You don't necessarily focus a lot on where your teams finish, where they finish in terms of first, second, third, or whatever, because you really point for 2 meets. The conference championships and the regional championships. Do you guys talk about that a lot in terms of your training as you go into Friday when you go to Eau Claire? Obviously you want to do really well, but you also want to be setting yourself up for those 2 meets.
Yeah, I think I'll let Dave answer that question. But yeah, we've been talking quite a bit about it too. We have a squad this year, I think, that is capable of moving up in the conference on both the men's and women's side, and that part's really exciting. But now to do it, okay, what do we have to do it? It's not just let's show up and run well. What are our goals and what are our targets along the way to do it?
Right, we definitely focus on that a lot. I mean, that is our ultimate goal, is to run that conference meet and then the regional meet after that. But we've been focusing on that a lot more as a team this year, because we have 7 new freshmen, and 3 of them are running, right up there with some of our best guys. And for this upcoming meet, there's specific people from teams in our conference, like Carleton and Gustavus, that I know I can stick with. And if I'm up there and the other people on the team are close behind, we're going to be able to pick those people off. And we've never been able to finish, high up before. So if we can just take one team at a time, it's really going to make us better and raise our team's confidence, which is the most important thing.
Most of the races that you do compete in now, a lot of the conference schools are in, correct? Like the Eau Claire one, I know there'll be quite a few conference schools there. Is that a good thing for you because of like what David said, where you can kind of set yourself up, okay, these are the people from Carleton that I know I can run with or I can beat, and is that kind of how you look at a meet like Friday?
Yeah, absolutely, because I mean, we're not obviously we're not peaking for the middle season of those meets there, but we can get a really good assessment of who we can pick off and how we can rank ourselves according to it. And we get an idea of who likes to race what kind of style too, so we can use that to our advantage a little bit too.
Switch gears a little bit here. Talk a little bit about the women's team so far and what you've seen at them. I mean, I know Rachel Folan's had we talk about David. She's had a phenomenal start to the season as well. Emily D's running really well. Ashley Lacosta. Just talk a little bit about the women's side of the team.
Ward, we got about 30 seconds.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, Rachel's actually going to be a lot better. She's just starting to figure out how good she can be right now. But the women's side, we have a solid core of women. We have a bunch of sophomores and sophomores and junior women who there's good leadership in there, some good experience, and there's some good talent in there too. We're just a little bit unhealthy right now, so we need to get the health back. And once we get the health, I think we're going to be doing pretty good. So
all right, Ward Berndt, men's and women's cross country head coach. Thanks for joining us, David Feather. Thanks to you, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, stay tuned. Donnie and I will be right back here on the Cardinals Nest to talk about some non-sporting events coming up. That's next here on HBC.
The weather affects us each day. It determines how we dress, our family plans, even our mood. And while HBC TV 25 can't control the weather, we can provide you the information you need to plan better. We'll bring you the latest weather information featuring state-of-the-art forecast equipment and Doppler radar. Plus, you'll be able to find weather 24/7 on my.hbci.com. HBC TV 25, your news and now weather source.
And we're back here on the Cardinals Nest. Dean Beckman, Donny Nadeau, to wrap things up by telling you about some non-sporting events coming to St. Mary's University of Minnesota, the Winona campus, and Page Theater, a series of events once again. And the first event of this season is sold out. It's called Buckets and Tap Shoes. It's a company of musicians, percussionists, and rhythm tap dancers. They're going to perform at 6:30 p.m. on Friday, October 2nd, so this upcoming Friday. And Donnie, they use instruments that even you and I know how to play. They use 5-gallon buckets, they use metal cans, barrels, found objects, tap shoes, and more, all to create rhythms. They also mix in original live funk music, some improvisation, and even magic tricks. No
they
jokes,
actually
though.
asked me to be on it, but I couldn't make it. I'll be up in the cities with the conference championship,
All right.
so I couldn't go.
You lucked out.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that event is sold out, but plenty more Page Theater events coming up. So you can contact the Page Theater at 457-5501 for all of the details on the many events coming up. That's going to do it for the Cardinals Nest this week here on HBC. Thanks for watching. Tune in again next week right here on Channel 25 HBC.